sports-wise for me, because Saturday night, I just stayed home Saturday just to kind of like, decompress. I actually took a nap before any of the games started that night, to be honest with you. And watching the Sixers, my big takeaway was this is why games like this in the regular season matter. Look, I understand that every game in the regular season matters. I'm not naive or dumb enough to think that. I'm not one of those people who gets emotionally hung up on what happens from night to night in a season. It's not who I am. It's not what I do. But I'm not going to ignore the value and relevance when a team does win on a specific night. Because the value and relevance of a tournament like the NBA playoffs is that you don't just have a handful of teams in there. The NBA and the NHL basically have half the league make the postseason every single year. It's not like football where only a minority of the teams make the postseason. So in a regular season, it does matter what you did, because you know what happens? People remember things. People remember what you did, what you didn't do. So it's not always explicitly the game itself. It's not always explicitly how many points you won, how you won. The how you won is more important than the final score. Because the person who turns around and didn't watch Sixers game, beat Milwaukee on Saturday night, is going to look at the box score, they're going to look at the final score, and they'll come off with opinions. And you can't do that. You have to watch the ebb and flow of the game. And the ebb and flow of the game showed you that the 76ers are the one team that matches up the best with Milwaukee of all the teams in the Eastern Conference. I mentioned this earlier to Mike Gill on the Sports Bash. Philly is the only guy that can look at Giannis and say, bring it in the Eastern Conference. The only one. There's no other team in the Eastern Conference that has a guy that can stick with Giannis at all. Don't tell me Robert Williams is the guy in Boston. Don't tell me Bam Adebayo is the guy in Miami. Don't tell me Julius Randle is the guy with the Knicks. If you want to tell me Evan Mobley is athletic enough to keep up with Giannis, he's athletic enough, but he is not experienced enough to deal with Giannis. That's the facts. The facts are that the Sixers, Joel Embiid, is the one guy that can give Giannis the most problems in a 7-game best of 7 series where you have to win 4 games and you move on to the next round. And you saw on Saturday night that Giannis still got his. It's not that Giannis had a bad game, but it's that for key stretches of the game, when Giannis was trying to assert his will, Joel Embiid didn't let him. And because Embiid was spending that energy dealing with Giannis, it opened the floor for a guy like Harden to have one of the best games we've ever seen in a Sixers uniform. It was a huge number. And they mentioned this, I think it was on NBA Game Time. It was Greg Anthony on NBA TV about how the fact that the Sixers only had 5 turnovers in the game was a huge part of their success, because they didn't give Milwaukee a bunch of extra opportunities. What they did was they forced Milwaukee to play outside of their comfort zone. They made Giannis work extra hard. And you got to give Giannis a ton of credit. For a guy who used to be a horrible free throw shooter, he went 16 for 18 on Saturday night. But when it came to the rest of his game, he struggled at times offensively because that guy, Joel Embiid, was there. Now, because Embiid was focused on Giannis, a guy like Brook Lopez had more open looks from from the outside. What was it? I think he went 3 for 5 or 2 for 4 from 3-point range. But Brook Lopez isn't getting those looks if Embiid is more focused on him instead of Giannis. But the idea is let Brook Lopez get his. As long as we stop Giannis from taking over this game. Now, things look tenuous when the Grayson Allen that came from Duke showed up for about a 10, 12-minute run where he was absolutely on fire. But the NBA is a game of streaks, and you knew that there was going to be a point in time where the Bucks were going to make a run. You just didn't expect it to come from Grayson Allen. The Sixers did a great job at being disciplined, keeping themselves in the game, fighting to the very end, not giving up. And this is now 2 straight Saturdays where they went blow for blow with the best teams in the conference. Now, they could probably lose tonight, and I'm not going to sweat it. And I'm not going to sweat it because on an NBA season where you have multiple games on a road trip, you're going to lose some of those games. As I told you guys last Friday here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, Josh Hennig hanging out with you on a Monday, I told you guys, you just hat tip to the Dallas Mavericks for shooting over 50% from 3. You give Dallas the credit for beating you. You just do. And you move on. You move on because you realize that for one night, Dallas was just absolutely on fire from 3, and you had no answer, and you moved on. It happens. Some days, you just get burned by the 3-pointer. What's the old saying? You live by the 3, you die by the 3 in the NBA in today's game. It's pretty much what happens sometimes. So for me, I don't sit here and look at this road trip as the end-all, be-all. But for one night, when you ask the Sixers to give you a playoff caliber game, to give you a playoff level effort, you got that. And I give them a ton of credit for it. And I think that for 2 straight weeks, the Sixers were kind of like the Creed movies. You know, Creed 3 came out this weekend. Well, in Creed 1, Adonis lost. But in losing, he won the fans. He won the crowd. Why? He won the fans and the crowd because he went out there against one of the best on the planet and went the distance. He didn't get knocked out. He didn't get finished. He didn't get crushed. He actually almost beat Pretty Ricky in that movie. What happens in the second movie? He ends up beating the big monster in the end to get his belt back. Because sometimes you gotta lose in order to win. Sometimes you gotta know where your shortcoming is for you to become great. And I think that in games like the Celtics game and like the Milwaukee game, you learn more about the Sixers than you do in the second game of a back-to-back on the road in Dallas when Kyrie and Luka are on fire from 3. You guys let me know what you think. 609-403-0973 is the text board. You also can DM the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank. See, before we hit the break, I did want to hit on the Eagles news I mentioned earlier. So for those who didn't see the story or maybe weren't sure all the details, Dennard Wilson is no longer on the Eagles coaching staff. And depending on who's reporting and analysis you lean toward, whether you lean toward they had a mutual parting of the ways, or you're somebody who says, there was more going on than we thought. The reality is that Dennard Wilson is no longer one of the Eagles' top defensive coaches anymore. And you have to think a lot of it had to do with Sean Desai getting the job. And my first gut instinct is there's not a moment in my mind do I think that if Dennard Wilson is thinking logically, that he says, you know what? I hate this place. You interviewed me. You didn't give me the job. I'm out. No way, no how that I think that was the case. I think that this comes down to hard feelings, misunderstandings, and ultimately, Philadelphia decided that they were going to go in a different direction. And Dennard Wilson was not interested in being a part of that direction for whatever reason. Dennard Wilson was highly thought of by the players who played in the secondary this past season. And whether you want to believe it was Gannon or you want to believe it was Wilson for why Bradbury had a resurgent year, why CJ Gardner-Johnson had a career year, why the Eagles got to the biggest game of the year, the Super Bowl. The reality is I think both Wilson and Gannon had a hand in it. And now you lose both of them and you bring in Sean Desai. Nick Sirianni mentioned this in passing last week, that there's going to be some growing pains. There's going to be some things this team, this organization has got to work through. And part of it is the fact that they're going in the next season with pretty much almost none of the coaches that they had this past year on defense. This was statistically a top 5 defense in the NFL in numerous categories. And now you lost your defensive coordinator, your defensive backs coach, and your linebackers coach. You're losing a lot of people in one offseason. And don't forget, you can't bring everybody back. There's no way they're bringing back Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham and TJ Edwards and Kazir White and CJ Gardner-Johnson and James Bradbury and Marcus Epps. Of those 8 guys, you're probably only keeping half of them. If we're being completely honest and objective and living in the real world and not in some alternate reality, the truth is that the Philadelphia Eagles are going to lose 4 of those 8 guys. Now, which of those 8, I can't tell you for sure. I know who I personally would keep. My priorities on this defense for next year is CJ Gardner-Johnson, Javon Hargrave, TJ Edwards, Brandon Graham. Those are my 4. Now, your 4 may be different, and you can let me know at 609-403-0973 is the text board, or you can DM the show through the 973 ESPN mobile app. It's free thanks to First Bank of Seattle. Those are my 4. I think CJ Gardner-Johnson is evolving into a high-level player. And at his age, he's still got another few years to reach his peak. I prioritize Brandon Graham because I think Graham's leadership in the locker room is incredibly valuable. And I think that the Eagles understand that an organization that has prioritized character and culture above everything else understands, or should understand at least, what Brandon Graham brings to this organization. He may never have double-digit sacks ever again, but his value is beyond just sack numbers for this organization. I'm keeping TJ Edwards because I love the idea of him and Nakobe Dean working together as the 2 primary linebackers on this defense. And I'm trying to keep Javon Hargrave because I'm assuming that because Hargrave is younger than Fletcher Cox, that he's going to have more good years ahead of him at this point than Fletcher does. Hargrave just turned 30 years old. I think Hargrave probably has 3 more really good years in him before he's probably going to start hitting the downward slope. I think Fletcher is already starting to show you that he doesn't have the same umph that he used to. Fletcher is a guy who he turns 33 during the Eagles season in December. So he's got a couple years on Hargrave. I think Fletcher is slowing down a little bit. I think Fletcher can still be productive in the next few years, but I think you saw this past year that when everything went well, Fletcher gave you a good year. I don't think he's the kind of player anymore that no matter what is going on around him, he can still be productive. I don't think he's that guy anymore. I think he needs the right situation, the right environment. I think Hargrave, as long as he's next to a big boy, a big body bigger than him, I think he can still be an impact D tackle on the D line. When he's next to guys like Jordan Davis and Linval Joseph, it allows Hargrave to do what he does best. And I wouldn't be surprised if they bring Linval Joseph back next year in some capacity. And for Kazir White, I think that you saw that White has limitations. He was great for what they needed to upgrade the position this past year, but I don't think that bringing him back is going to be better than when the Kobe Dean is going to be long-term. And the reason why I don't think the Eagles are going to prioritize Bradbury is because, in my opinion, I'm going in this offseason thinking that Bradbury is going to take a massive deal from somebody. The two positions in the NFL that it's hard to find good players at, in my opinion, is offensive line and corner. That's why I think both Sayamalu and Bradbury are gone, because I think somebody is going to overpay for each of those guys, a number that's way above their market value and what the Eagles are comfortable giving them. All right, I'll check in on text board in a little bit here on 609-403-0973. Also your DMs in 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Game night here on 973 ESPN. Being brought to you by my friends over at Jenkins & Sons. One call does it all. No need to call the drain guy, the heater guy, or the plumbing guy. Jenkins technicians have got you covered at 609-641-6440. From new heating and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, gas furnaces, leak repairs, and more. Just call 609-641-6440 or visit them online at jenkinsandsons.com.
Here's what you missed on Greeny with Mike Greenberg.
You're talking about watching a guy adjust his batting glove and scratch himself. That's literally all you are losing. If it's 20 minutes a game times 162, that's 54 hours, 2.5 days of your life. They are giving you back that you could spend doing nothing or you could spend doing something else.
Greeny, weekday mornings at 10 a.m. on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
This hour brought to you by Xfinity.
Everything is changing so fast. Back in my day, we were lucky if we could get one video to load. But now with the Xfinity 10G network, you can power a house full of devices at once with ultra-low lag. The future starts now. Restrictions apply. Actual speeds vary and not guaranteed.
Ad paid for by Anthem Tax Services. Attention. If you or your business is behind in filing your tax returns, or if you owe over $10,000 in back taxes to the IRS, please listen carefully. The IRS does not joke around and will not stop their collection efforts. If you're tired of the IRS letters, levies, liens, or wage garnishments and would like to get a fresh start, we can help. Due to the financial hardships in the country, the IRS is making it easier than ever to settle tax problems for those who owe more than $10,000. We can help settle your delinquent tax problems, end all collections, and may even reduce your back taxes significantly. Even if you can't afford to pay your back taxes, you can still get the help you need. We've helped thousands of taxpayers just like you, but you must call 800-245-7816 today to stop your tax problem from getting worse. The information is free and the help is real. Call 800-245-7816. That's 800-245-7816. Again, 800-245-7816.
I'll second guest dinners with friends because they can be interrupted by diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or oily stools. It turns out I have EPI, or exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, which means I'm missing the enzymes needed to digest food. My doctor prescribed Creon, pancrelipase, an oral prescription medication that replaces pancreatic digestive enzymes. Creon treats EPI due to cystic fibrosis, chronic pancreatitis, pancreatectomy, or other conditions.
Creon may increase your chance of fibrosing colonopathy, a rare bowel disorder. Tell your doctor if you have a history of intestinal blockage or scarring or thickening of your bowel wall, if you're allergic to pork, or if you have gout, kidney problems, or worsening of painful swollen joints. Call your doctor if you have any unusual or severe gastrointestinal symptoms or allergic reactions. Take Creon as directed by your doctor and always with food. Do not chew capsules, as this may cause mouth irritation. Other side effects may include blood sugar changes, gas, dizziness, sore throat, and cough. These are not all the side effects of Creon.
Creon is the #1 prescribed EPI treatment. Ask your doctor about Creon for EPI and visit creoninfo.com or call 800-633-9110 to learn more. That's CREONinfo.com.
The Venture X card from Capital One gives you premium travel benefits, perfect for seeing Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. Presented by Capital One. Ooh, I do love her. Earn 5 times miles on flights and 10 times miles on hotels through Capital One Travel.
Enjoy your stay in Suite 13.
Whoa, 13? That's Taylor's lucky number. The Venture X from Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
The 2023 Hercules Tires MAC Basketball Championships are returning to Atlantic City's Jim Whalen Boardwalk Hall, March 7th through 11th, featuring 22 men's and women's teams. The tournament is fun for the family, featuring a band jam, Spirit Squad showcase, and a mac and cheese fest, where you'll be able to taste a variety of mac and cheese from your favorite local restaurants. Don't miss your chance to be a part of the action to see who'll cut down the nets and earn a spot in the big dance. Get your tickets at boardwalkhall.com.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs, and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Haley, quote, "Navage is the best thing I bought. I love it. My nose feels so clear now and I can breathe. I've been struggling with a stuffy nose for weeks. I bought Navage and it's amazing." Or this one, "I use Navage every night, could not imagine life without it. I have 5 cats, and before I found Navage, I was a clogged mess. Now I breathe so much better," unquote. Those are 2 of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
People who come to Cricket stay with Cricket, just like our customer, Michelle.
As an entrepreneur, every day is different. My phone bill from Cricket, on the other hand, always stays the same. Without surprises, hidden fees, or annual contracts, I can work worry-free.
That's Michelle, everybody, doing business like a boss. Smile, you're on Cricket.
Real customer paid for testimonial. See cricketwireless.com for details.
Save thousands at Matt Blatt Kia. Get out of your old trade today, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Go to MattBlattKiaNJ.com for more details. That's MattBlattKiaNJ.com.
It's got to be a
Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
6:47 on a Monday. Don't forget Sixers basketball tonight. They're in Indiana to play the Pacers. Here, Tom McGinnis, all the action is net on your home for Sixers basketball in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN. By the way, it's been officially announced that both Tobias Harris and Pete Tucker will miss tonight's game versus Pacers. Keith Pompey mentioned that earlier today on the Sports Dash with Mike Gill. So, there you go. No Harris, no Tucker tonight. It's interesting that Embiid is going to play tonight because the expectation was that Embiid was probably not going to play any back-to-backs on this road trip. Remember, he didn't play in Miami. He played in Dallas. Then he played in Milwaukee. So I'm wondering, does Embiid not play tomorrow? They give him an extended rest leading into the return home on Friday night. both Embiid and Harden not play tomorrow in Minnesota. That'd be disappointing. It's weird because the NBA really needs to make a rule that if you're going to play, if you have guys who are like, load managing or resting, or if there's a back-to-back, they got to make a rule that teams have to choose between, they have to rest the guys on the games that are not on national TV. They got to come up with that rule somehow. I know Mike Gill has mentioned that before. I don't understand this idea that the league thinks it's okay to let things play out like this, because it's not. It's kind of telling your fans to, go take a long walk on a short pier. That TNT game tomorrow has to have the stars. Every national TV game has to have the stars, because one, you got to stop telling your fans that we don't care how you feel and how you're spending your money. And two, you can't tell your advertisers and your TV partners that when you advertised all week that fill in the blank player is going to play and then he doesn't play, it's a bad look. TNT is going to run ads all day tomorrow and even tonight on certain platforms that it's Embiid and it's Anthony Edwards, right? And then if Embiid doesn't go out there and play, I mean, that's just a bad look to me. But tonight, no PJ Tucker, no Tobias Harris. Be interesting to see how Doc Rivers handles the rotations for tonight's game. He's got some interesting options. I expect to see a lot of run for Paul Reed tonight. Maybe a little extra run for Niang, especially after him finding himself again on Saturday. So that will be interesting. Again, Sixers basketball, 7 p.m. tonight on 97.3 ESPN FM. As I said earlier, for those who didn't hear, I will get back to the winners of the tickets a little bit later this evening. Just doing my best to work through all the people who texted in Mike Gill's question earlier on the Sports Bash. So once I can get through all your messages, I will get back to you as soon as I can this evening about how you can get your hands on those tickets. Over on the text board at 609-403-0973. Jeff in Ocean City chimes in. Since Saturday night was the second game recently, I almost gave up on the Sixers and left the bar and turned the game off. Fortunately, a friend saw me and got me to stay, and I saw an exciting fourth quarter. Go Sixers. That's from Jeff in Ocean City. Jeff, I understand the frustration, and I feel like that for a sports fan base that just experienced an amazing run with the Phillies and then another amazing run with the Eagles, that maybe you look at a team like the Sixers and you get a little more exasperated with things than you maybe would be otherwise. Like if the Sixers were having this like all-time season like the Eagles just did, maybe you'd feel differently about them. Maybe if you look at what happened with the Phillies and the Eagles, in many ways it was unexpected. But because you were given these two wonderful gifts, you tend to look at the Sixers differently. And I totally understand that. I don't hold it against anybody. And I can appreciate that a fan like Jeff in Ocean City says, look, I was frustrated. I was able to turn the game off. But the problem is that today's modern NBA, you have runs. And every game is going to have a run. Every game is going to have a moment in the game that is going to cause you to want to turn the game off, whether it's your team or not. Because the style of today's NBA is, well, to be honest with you, bizarre at times. The runs and the lack of defense is really frustrating because these players don't give a full effort every night. I told you guys before, I don't ask a team to give me 110% every night. But if teams more often than not gave you 80 to 85% and not more like 66%, you'd probably be happier with the product from night to night. When a couple weeks ago, when the Grizzlies crushed the Denver Nuggets, it was like the Denver Nuggets just decided, Today's a 50-50 day. We're just not going to care too much. And the Grizzlies say, we're going to give 90%, we're going to beat you. And we're going to beat you handily. And it's part of the problem with today's NBA. Today's NBA, the regular season has been devalued by the fans and by the players. And so, because of these runs, and because of these pendulum swings, and because of these moments in the game where things get really ugly, it can be a turnoff for people. And I totally understand that. The NBA is still the number 2 team sport in the United States, and for good reason, because they still give you an entertaining product for you to watch. Baseball is going to try to use these new rule changes to try to crawl their way back to number 2. It'll be interesting to see how baseball does this year in terms of viewership, in terms of attendance with the rule changes. That's for sure. Over on the text board at 609-403-0973 is the text board. Also can DM the show. Through the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on a Monday night, the Power Hour, also known as Game Night. An anonymous texter chimed in and says the UFC is the best underdog betting in all of sports. Well, the reason that is, texter, and I wish we would have left your name, I would have given you credit, is because, if you guys have listened to me here on 973 ESPN for the last few years, I've been telling you guys, whether here on Game Night or on all the other shows I've been a part of over the years, that the UFC is the one sport that the odds makers don't understand. It's the one sport that they're constantly having to hedge their bets with. You go through the different odds on different fights, you realize that many of those numbers are the valuations is because the odd maker is constantly creating scenarios to protect themselves. Because MMA is the one sport that predictive analysis fails on. Always. Because in the fight game, your fight history does not dictate your present or your future explicitly. It's a part of the larger picture. It's a bit of a overused story, but I'll just give it as an example really quick. Have any of you ever heard the story of the blind men and the elephant? The story goes basically that a bunch of blind men were sent to an elephant to describe it and then come back and describe it. And one says, an elephant is thick like a tree trunk. One says an elephant is flexible like a snake. One says an elephant is light like a feather. And each one of them is because they touched a different part of the elephant and they thought that was all the elephant was. And that's the same thing when it comes to sports betting, when it comes to especially MMA. You cannot look at a fighter matchup and explicitly say, well, this person has a history with this record and this many wins by knockout or this many submission wins, and this is going to dictate who they're going to be, because that's how you lose your picks. I told people for weeks, Cyril Gane built up this gaudy record, this impressive 11-1 record with his only loss of Francis Ngannou because he took advantage of the COVID pandemic. He took advantage of fights over the years that made him look better than he was. He fought a past his prime Junior Dos Santos. He basically neutralized a dangerous guy in Rosenstrike. He basically was a better athlete against Alexander Volkov. And by the way, Rosenstrike and Volkov were decision wins. They weren't like this some dominant performance by him. But the knockout of Derek Lewis, people hung on to like it was the gospel, to act like, see, he knocked out Derek Lewis. And it's like, well, Derek Lewis is a all or nothing fighter. That's like saying that, the reason why the Houston Rockets lost to the Warriors years ago in that game 7 when they couldn't hit a 3 was because the Warriors hit more threes than them. Well, duh. Like, come on. Some of this analysis is ridiculous. Francis Ngannou is not a wrestler. He went into the fight and says, I'm going to wrestle a guy who can't stop wrestling because I'm just a better athlete. John Jones is a collegiate JUCO national champion wrestler. John Jones is one of the greatest athletes to ever walk into a UFC octagon. And you're telling me that you thought Ciryl Gane had a chance against John Jones because he knocked out Derek Lewis and tied Tuivasa? And that's a problem with the odds makers. The odds makers knew that Jones was the heavy favorite. They knew that Valentina Shevchenko was a heavy favorite. They knew that Bo Nichols was a heavy favorite. But what they did is they created these favorable odds when it came to the props. How many rounds, style of win, are they going to win by knockout, submission, decision? So the reason why UFC is the greatest underdog winning sport of all time is because if you know what you're looking at, if you understand how the fight game works, then you would understand that the reason why a guy like, a woman like Alexa Grasso can defeat Shevchenko is because if you watch Alexa Grasso, you know that she's basically a fearless person. She doesn't look at other fighters as, you're great, I'm intimidated by you. It's just not in her makeup. So if you would have thrown a flyer on Grasso, you made a big number. Now, I didn't pick Alexa to win. I thought Valentina would come in and fight a better fight. She let Alexa stay in the fight. She tried to go on cruise control at times in that fight. And Alexa started to not dominate, but she started to control the exchanges. And similar to John Jones, when John Jones saw his opening, he immediately took advantage, finished the fight. Alexa did a great job in the fourth round to say, I see an opening, here's my moment, because Valentina never gave her a reason to back off. I think that what we saw on Saturday night is, as I put on Twitter, the GOAT conversation at MMA is back on the table. Because when John Jones was having all of those issues with the drug problems, with the legal issues, I told a friend of mine over the weekend, I said, John Jones, because of all the drug problems, it's hard to know what was him and what was the drugs. What was him and what was him under the influence of mind-altering substances? How many of his poor decisions were made because he was not in the right state of mind, because he was an addict? When he tested positive for some of the substances that he did that got him in trouble, he got in trouble because he was taking those substances to offset his drug use. So when he had the fight with Daniel Cormier, no contest overturned, right? When he barely beat Thiago Santos and Dominic Reyes, how much of that was him? How much of that was the drugs? You know, when he had the fight that he did against Alexander Gustafsson back in 2013, that fight probably did more damage to Jones than we realize. That fight was probably something that did more damage to his psyche than we realized, because it was only after that he started having all of these outside the sport issues, drug issues. And it was in that moment that you realized that this isn't John Jones anymore. Those fights he had against Anthony Smith, Thiago Santos, and Dominic Reyes, he was a lesser version of himself. And it looks like the best thing that ever happened to Jones was for him to step away from the sport for about 3 years. Because those 3 years, he was able to get his mind and body in a better place. He looked happier and healthier than he has looked in 5 years at minimum. The last time I saw that version of John Jones is when he blasted Alexander Gustafsson in their rematch in 2018. Because in 2018, Jones came out there with an attitude of, I am not losing to this guy. I'm going to come in here and beat this guy and put all questions to rest. The John Jones that early in his career was a dominant force of nature was back on Saturday night. And if it's true that we're going to get a Jones versus Stipe Miocic showdown, I cannot wait, because I am a fan of seeing greatness. And Stipe Miocic is arguably the greatest heavyweight of all time and one of the 10 greatest UFC fighters of all time. And John Jones can be in the argument for the greatest fighter in UFC history. So this is two of the best going head to head. And it's not like one guy is so far past his prime than the other. Jones right now is 35 years old. But you could argue he is a 35 years old without a lot of wear and tear on the tires after taking 3 years off. Miocic is in a similar situation. Even though Miocic is 40 years old, well, I think he turns 40 later this year. I double check his age. But Miocic doesn't have the wear and tear of fighting on his body as some other fighters do. Miocic has only, I think it was twice they said in his entire career that he has fought twice in the same calendar year in the last basically 10 years. You look at a guy he fought in 2021, 2020, 2019, twice in 2018, once in 2017, 3 times in 2016, once in 2015. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a guy who pretty much over the same run that John Jones was still winning at his weight class, he was winning at his weight class. And the only losses that Miocic has had over the last decade have been the former champions. Junior Dos Santos in 2014, Daniel Cormier in 2018, and then Francis Ngannou in 2021. And after the loss to Ngannou, Miocic basically said, you know what? I'm moving on. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to step away from the fight game. He's been away for 2 years. So he's coming in fresh, just like Jones did against Ciryl Gane. Now, I personally am not picking Miocic to beat John Jones, but it's going to be a much more even match than an inexperienced guy like Gane, who literally his biggest wins were against one-dimensional fighters. Miocic is a former Golden Gloves champion as a boxer, amateur boxer. He has an underrated wrestling game. People don't talk about him as a wrestler, even though he did wrestle in college. So he has the boxing and the wrestling to pair together and go out there and give Jones probably one of the best fights that he's ever had. Jones is not the kind of guy who has been challenged often in his career. The most times he's been challenged was the war he had with Alexander Gustafsson, and when he was basically suffering the side effects of taking drugs and other mind-altering substances, that he was in a position where he wasn't in the right frame of mind to dominate. So this is a fascinating fight, and I hope it happens. In terms of Shevchenko and Grasso, let me just say this. I think that Valentina is going to probably get a rematch with Alexa, and she'll probably win the rematch. Because I think that for Valentina, she needed to get a loss to realize that you can't just coast your way through fights. That was the first time Valentina Shevchenko lost a fight since 2017. And she lost it to Amanda Nunes at a different weight class. She has not lost a fight until Saturday night at the weight class she has been dominant of. She's only ever lost before last night to Amanda Nunes twice, different weight class, and to Luz Carmouche, different weight class. And the loss to Liz was 2010, so that's 13 years ago. sometimes as an athlete, you have to lose to learn how to win. Like I was saying with the Sixers earlier in the show, the Sixers needed the losses, I think, to Miami on last Monday night and the loss to Boston in a close fight on the previous Saturday for them to learn how to beat the Bucks this past Saturday. It's part of the evolution process of a team. You find yourself by the end of the year, so you go to the postseason and go ahead and dominate. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. We'll wrap up the show coming up on the other side.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Back to Joel Embiid along the right side against Adebayo. Shoots it from 12 and it's in. Tough shot with Adebayo right there.
It's Sixers-Pacers tonight. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey. 97.3 ESPN.
With Mega Millions now up to $188 million, what are you waiting for? A $2 chance could make you Jersey's next mega winner. After all, anything can happen in Jersey.
Businesses don't run on automation or algorithms alone. What powers businesses are your people and the people they serve. At Cintas, your dedicated service reps understand what you need to help you keep your employees feeling safe, comfortable, and performing their best. So your business can too. For workwear, essential cleaning products, first aid and safety supplies, and fire protection services, visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
This world has its limits, but in the all-new, all-electric Nissan Ariya, you've got a world of possibilities. You can leave it all behind in serene interiors, or you can go after it with available e-Force all-wheel drive. Go your way in the all-new, all-electric Nissan Ariya. Nissan Ariya with e-Force not yet available for purchase. Expected availability early 2023, subject to change. E-Force all-wheel drive is an optional feature. E-Force cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
When you're rolling Charmin up yourself on the party, this is more, so roll it back, everybody. Charmin's irresistible, soft and hella nice. The grip is always soft, it's our party vibe. So everybody wanna touch the sky.
Charmin Ultra Soft is irresistibly soft and more absorbent, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
The Bet365 Bracket Challenge is here. It's free to play for your chance to win up to $10 million. Predict the winner of every game of the tournament this March, from round 1 to the championship. The best bracket wins up to $100,000, but the perfect bracket wins up to $10 million. Join in by March 16th to play the Bet365 Bracket Challenge. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 plus. No purchase necessary. See full terms and conditions at bet365.com.
Texting privacy policy and terms and conditions posted at textplan.us. Texting enrolls for recurring automated text marketing messages. Message data rates may apply or apply stopped, opt out. Go to nomoredraftywindows.com for full offer details.
Attention all homeowners. Do you know when to replace your windows? Feeling too hot or cold? It's time to replace. Fog between the glass. Time to replace. Spending too much on expensive energy that literally goes out the window? It's definitely time to replace. If you've put off replacing windows in your home because it's too expensive, here's great news. You can now get a free in-home window consultation and free price quote from Renewal by Andersen, the company with the most 5-star reviews among leading full-service window replacement companies. And right now, you can save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. Just text PLACE to 200-300 for your free consultation on top-quality affordable windows or patio doors for $0 down, 0 payments, and 0 interest for a year. That's right. You don't pay a dime for an entire year. Plus, save $359 off every window and $887 off every door. But hurry, these big dollar savings end this month. Text PLACE to 200-300 right now. Text the word PLACE to 200-300. Don't wait. Text PLACE to 200-300.
Do you love a good cigar almost as much as your family? Well, maybe that's an exaggeration, but you can find that perfect cigar at Smokers Haven. With 5 New Jersey locations, Smokers Haven has the finest selection of cigars in the area, like Ashton, My Father's, Romeo and Julieta, Monte Cristo, and more. All from the finest tobacco leaves and hand-rolled by the world's finest cigar makers. All locations are fully open. Stop in and let them help you find the perfect cigar to pair with your life. See all they have and their locations at smokershavennj.com.
I'm Martin Hoke, the inventor of Navage Nasal Care, and I love Navage. I've told you about how your nose is the body's air filter, that Navage's powered suction will help flush out allergens, viruses, mucus, and germs. and that Navage will help you breathe better. But what do other people say about Navage? Like Tara, quote, "My doctor wanted me to do saline rinses for my allergies, but I've never been able to successfully use a neti pot. Navage uses suction power, so it's foolproof. There are nights when I'll have particularly bothersome allergies. I'll bust it out, and the results are immediate. It's such a relief. It's become a lifesaver," unquote. She's one of over 100,000 online reviews praising Navage, the all-natural solution trusted by over 3 million people to help you breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier without drugs. Navage is available at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, Target, Rite Aid, and online. Navage, Navage, clean nose, healthy life.
There are so many reasons to get hooked on Church's 8-piece shrimp meal. It's dippable, crunchable, downright irresistible, and it starts at $5.99. The only catch, it's only here for a limited time. Church's Texas Chicken. Welcome to the great state of flavor.
Your luxury BMW experience is closer than you think. Take advantage of exceptional savings at BMW of Atlantic City. Stop in and shop your favorite models, including the new BMW 2 Series, X3, and more. We're sure to have a vehicle that fits your needs. And with online directly to trade, we'll pay top dollar for your current vehicle. Experience luxury today at BMW of Atlantic City, closer than you think, in Egg Harbor Township. Shop our complete inventory online at bmwatlanticcity.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Here's one more message with that here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. James chimes in on the DMs on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Hey, Josh, you want Matt Patricia for the Eagles staff? Your thoughts? No, I do not want Matt Patricia on any staff for the Philadelphia. I think Matt Patricia is a grossly overrated coach. I think that he was a byproduct of being a Bill Belichick disciple. I think that you saw how the Patriots failed miserably when they asked him to do something that was not his strength. I think that Matt Patricia needs to go to the Nick Saban School of Coaching Rehabilitation, because between his failures in Detroit and the clashes of personalities he had, plus the fact of his failures and not getting along, he is not along with a bunch of different guys as a coach now. Apparently him and Darius Slayton get along in Detroit. Him and Mac Jones get along in New England. I mean, at some point, somebody's got to say, this guy doesn't get along with me. I don't want him on my staff. I think it would be a huge mistake if Nick Sirianni brought this guy to Philadelphia. Thanks for all the messages that came in throughout the show. Don't forget to check basketball tonight. Tommy, us on the call coming up next on 97.3 ESPN FM. Have a great night, everybody.
Health update with Robin Stola.